I think we're probably all still in recovery mode from the last 3 days, so great to be back in this room again. And here for our second workshop on the representation review. So we will just a reminder, of course, that we're being recorded, and we'll just open with our opening karakia, please. Te taua mai runga, te taua mai raro, te taua mai roto, te taua mai waho, kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, hongia, huie, tai. All right, I intend to do as little talking as possible today. I'm all talked out, so I'll hand across to our presenters, Jane and Anna. Cool.
Right, good morning everyone. So today we're here to share the results of the pre-consultation that was undertaken in May. And so we've got Dr. Virgil Troy and his team here to talk to you first. So this is really an opportunity to hear from the team about the pre-consultation results and then have some time to actually think about it and whether there's any additional modelling that you guys would like to do before we bring it to you on the 27th of June. So we're going to have Virgil next, then we're going to take you through some modelling that we've done with Statistics New Zealand on the mesh box. So that was some of the councillor requests from last time. We've got Anna and Morahu are going to talk about Māori wards. And then we're going to do a couple of breakout sessions. So that will give you a time to talk just amongst small groups about how you're feeling about the models, around have they represented communities of interest well, what are your top 3 models, do we need any additional modelling and ward names, some things like that. And then we'll finish off with a discussion about community boards as well. So, just the next one. So just a quick reminder where we are in the process. So we're still very much in the sort of gathering information analysis phase still before we bring it to you on the 27th of June for your decision. And then we get into the formal statutory process that you can see up there. Okay, so Virgil.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Lovely to see you all again. Hopefully the last couple of days hasn't been too hectic for you. So thank you for the opportunity to come in and make this presentation of the pre-consultation work that we did with the team at Napier City. What I'm going to do is pretty much stick to the subject matter that I have in front of me, just so that I don't ad-lib too much and extend the presentation longer than it needs to be. So starting from the beginning, the purpose of this research was to assist Napier City Council in their 2024 Representation Review public engagement, assessing the most preferred out of 5 potential options for Napier's future local democracy arrangements, and of course the potential inclusion of a community board in the Maraenui area. The 5 potential options were based on a community survey on the matter in late 2023, that was pre-engagement, including analysis to identify communities of interest in Napier. So data was collected between the 6th and the 24th of May. One of the methods we used was we distributed 2,000 postal surveys. 1,000 of those were distributed specifically in the Maraenui area and some of the surrounds, with the remaining being geographically spread across the other wards. Online surveys were also made available. They were promoted via Council's Say It Napier and also our social media marketing, and we also included telephone interviews as well. All relevant information about the review was available online at the Council's website, and it was distributed by the Council in a form of flyers. 5 Council-led community drop-in sessions and meetings were also held in the community. So the 5 options. We switched over yet? There we go.
Sorry to interrupt. Would you mind, Madam Mayor, if I just ask a question? This is a public workshop. If members of the public are listening to it, can they hear it now, or is it just go up on the website? Will they have this information also in front of them? Okay.
On our workshop page on the website.
Yep. The recording will be uploaded there, and the documents that have been circulated to you ahead of this have been put in there as well. Okay, so this will be circulated, what we're seeing now? Yes. Yeah, cool, thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so here are the 5 options that were decided on by council that we wanted to investigate. Option 1, this is the closest option to current arrangements, including 2 citywide Māori ward seats, provides for 13 councillors in total and 1 mayor. Option 2 brings together the current ward structure into 2 wards, Ahuriri, Taradale, and Nelson Park, Onikawa, Tamatea, that share similar socioeconomic characteristics. It includes 2 citywide Māori ward seats, provides for 11 councillors in total and a mayor. Option 3, the same considerations apply as per option 2. The difference in this option is that it provides 2 extra at-large representatives. Having some councillors elected at large provides a balance between representation and district-wide interest and local concerns. It provides for 13 councillors in total and a mayor. Option 4 gives close to an even split of councillors across the city and includes 3 wards, Ahuriri, Onikawa and Tamatea wards, with 2 citywide Māori ward seats, and provides for 11 councillors and 1 mayor. And option 5, the same considerations apply as for option 4. The difference in this option provides 2 extra at-large representatives. Having some councillors elected at large provides a balance again between representation of district-wide interests and local concerns. This provides for 13 councillors and a mayor. So in total, 702 surveys were used in the final analysis, and to ensure that the sample is representative of the Napier population, SIL utilised auxiliary data from Statistics New Zealand to establish standard proportions for sampling a diverse group of Napier residents aged 18 and over. So post-stratification weighting was applied to the full data set to reflect Napier's age and gender group proportions within each of the 4 wards. So it balanced out the data that we collected. From the 5 options provided, no single option was preferred by a clear majority of respondents. Public feedback was taken into account when analysing the selected options, and 15% of respondents either disagreed with all 5 presented options or with some aspects of them. After recalibrating the results, option 4 remained the most selected out of the 5, 34% before we calibrated it and 28% afterwards. As the most preferred of all options, option 4 was selected primarily because it provides fewer, or the minimum possible, councillors overall, the overriding concern across all consultation submissions. This reasoning was to some degree connected with concerns about costs, with fewer councillors perceived to represent lower cost to council and ratepayers. Option 4 was also the option most seen by respondents as providing an even, balanced or fair representation of wards and councillors.
What does recalibration involve?
Sorry?
I'll let you.
Yeah. What do you mean by recalibrate?
Thank you. So basically, when people completed the survey, they were only available to select one of 5 options, and after that provide a feedback. So in order to progress, they had to select some of the options. So we had to go back to feedback and read what they actually said. And people who clearly stated that they disagreed with the option, that option was unselected and recategorized as none is preferred.
So option 1 was the 3rd most preferred option out of the 5. Option 1 was selected primarily because it's closest to the status quo. Option 2 was the 2nd most preferred option. As for option 4, the most preferred option, option 2 was selected primarily because it provides fewer, or the minimum possible, councillors overall. Option 3 was the least preferred option, and as for option 5, option 3 received support for its inclusion of at-large councillors, with many advocates believing this provides greater or more diverse representation for the city as a whole, and an even, balanced representation in general. And as for option 3, option 5 primarily received support for its inclusion of at-large councillors. Many respondents believe this arrangement provides for more diverse representation for the city as a whole, more so than any other option, while also providing even or balanced representation across the wards, more so than option 3 in particular. 15% of all respondents stated they disagreed with all 5 proposed options or expressed opposition towards particular aspects of these options. Their overall feedback reflected a clear opposition to the establishment of Māori wards, with many respondents advocating for a non-racial, inclusive representation system. So here are the results of the preferred options by ward. So all 4 wards were generally in favour of option 4. Option 4 was the most preferred among Ahuriri and Taradale respondents and most suburbs. Onikawa Tamatea residents exhibited an even split between option 4 and option 1, whereas Nelson Park residents showed an even split between option 4 and option 2. Major concern highlighted by respondents was overall costs and rates, particularly after the 3-year plan consultation. Associated cost concerns with fewer councillors was one of the key reasons behind selecting a preferred option. Option 4 was also the most seen by respondents as providing an even, balanced or fair representation of wards and councillors, the second most mentioned consideration across all submissions, more so than in option 2. On to the establishment of Maraenui Community Board. Across all respondents, there were divided opinions over the establishment of a community board in Maraenui. Overall, 45% of respondents disagreed with the establishment of a community board in the Maraenui area, and 41% agreed. 14% remained unsure or neutral on this matter. The overriding consideration of supporters of the community board proposal was the need for Maraenui to have greater representation and a stronger voice in civic matters, or more support generally. The 3 distinct concerns were most prominent for opponents of the community board proposal were additional costs, all areas of Napier community should have equal representation or support, and that the Maraenui area was adequately represented by council and its existing democratic processes. And just another note on that, in 2023, across all Napier, the community board support was at 33%, higher in the Nelson Park and Maraenui area. 41% of respondents in 2023 believe Napier does not require the establishment of community boards. However, a difference in the question type should be taken into consideration when we're comparing those 2 numbers. Just under half of respondents, 46%, believe that there are sufficient means within the Maraenui community to be represented. 22% disagreed, and 1/3, that's 32%, remained unsure. Respondents agreeing that the Maraenui community has sufficient representation in place predominantly believe that existing council wards, councillors, and other consultation processes should already meet the community needs, and if not the case, these current mechanisms need improving, for example, greater or more active support from ward councillors. Respondents who disagree that Maraenui has sufficient representation in place primarily believe that the community was currently poorly represented and that existing representation processes were not sufficiently working, as seen in the current composition or diversity of council and or the lack of progress or evidence of improved outcomes in the area. And those are our findings. Sorry, there's a lot of numbers there, but it's an important matter to get everything right in.
Just on the Maraenui board area, do you have that data broken down to those who live in Maraenui and outside?
So basically, we reported results by suburb as well, including Maraenui, and support for community board in Maraenui was up to 64% from that area.
Right, no further questions? Excellent. very much.
Thank you for your time.
Sorry, I'm just wondering, the commentary that you've provided us with, I've seen that you're reading it, is that available in our pack or is that separate?
It's
Is
in
it the
main
executive
report.
summary?
Um,
So the actual what you have.
What I just read?
What
yeah,
you just
it's
read.
very much all
It is?
taken from the main report.
Okay, so but it's not like that. It's not all in one go. It's separated out into the different.
The slides from this workshop are on.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. But what you have said, is it the executive summary or is it taking different parts?
From
different
throughout, yeah,
topics.
throughout. So we've,
Can we have it like that? Because that's very helpful.
I think you said there's a copy or something, yeah.
Yes, so the slides, the new what he
No, I want what he said and the way that he said it so that it's all in one, so I don't have to go.
Well, just give me a call, I'll pop over and do it again if you like.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Slides, thanks. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Can I just ask a last question? The 64% of for Maraenui, how many people was that?
For Maraenui,
Yeah, just so I want to know 64% of what?
79 people.
99 people?
79.
79.
Yeah, in total. Slowly.
Getting old.
No other questions for Virgil? No. Okay, so just before I get into the mesh block modelling, Jess has just asked me to do a bit of a recap of what we're looking for direction on today in particular, just to remind everyone. So we're looking for direction on the communities of interest, whether you feel that we've adequately represented those in the various models, or whether there needs to be any sort of remodelling done. We want to have direction on council size, for you to turn your minds to that, for you to turn your minds to what you feel the top 2 or 3 options are out of those 5 options, or whether there's any additional modelling that you feel that you need to have a look at before we go to you for an initial proposal. We'd also want you to turn your minds to the ward names as well, and also any improvements. So like Virgil just said, some of the feedback came that perhaps there's some things we could be doing differently with our existing mechanisms, with our ward structure, and to turn your minds to that as well. So that's what all the components that we're looking for, as well as, of course, direction on community boards. Cool. Is that all right, Jess? Yep. Okay. So our next part is mesh block modelling. So when we gave the modelling to you last time, it was based on statistical area units, which is sort of a larger area than mesh blocks. So mesh blocks are the smallest units that stats collect information for. So the mesh block wasn't available to us then, so we had the bigger data, but we needed to go back to stats once you had determined what models you liked, so we could actually get the more particular data, because there could be some differences in those. So at the last workshop, when we looked at the 3-ward option, sorry, just looking for me. There was a request to look at whether we could include Jervois Town within the Taradale ward as opposed to within the Ahuriri ward, and whether that would still stack up with the plus or minus 10%. So we had a look at this, and yes, it does stack up. So that is definitely an option. So you can see on the screens that the second map shows Jervois Town in the pink. So just interestingly, in Virgil's survey, the Miani Awatoto Tiawa, so that's all lumped together, which sometimes is not so helpful for us, but just so you know, those residents had 50% of them liked options 4 and 5. So 30% liked option 4, 20% liked option 5, and there was quite a low like for the other options. So also, with Jervois Town included into Taradale Ward. If you have a look up here, these are the plus or minus 10% figures for the previous, what we went out with for consultation. So I've just highlighted the green figures there because they change when you add Jervois Town into Taradale Ward. So we just go to the next slide. You'll see that now the figures are closer between the plus or minus 10%. So actually that could be considered perhaps a fairer representation rather than Taradale being more of an outlier on the 10. If we just go back to the previous slide, because Taradale Ward is on the minus 10%, it also works the other way around. So it can also be plus 10% if you change the number of councillors. So you could theoretically have 4 in Ahuriri and 4 in Onikawa and 3 in Taradale as well under the model we went out to the public with. But when you look at the next model, those are so much closer anyway. So those probably considered a fairer option. Are there any questions on that one?
Just on that map, I'm just kind of looking, there's a little flip, little line and then a little in. What's that?
On the map?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which bit is it the green or
That looks like Bupa.
on the green?
No, on the pink. That'll be how the mesh blocks, the borders of the mesh blocks. So where the pink meets the green on the eastern side up the top.
No, Bupa's house. They go the other way.
Here.
I'm nowhere now. No one wants me. I'm gone.
Little blip.
Oh. Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're talking about the top right-hand corner of the pink. Yeah. Patrick, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but basically we modelled it on mesh blocks. So was there anyone living there in that little bit, or?
Is that the Bupa village?
No, Bupa was definitely included in that, wasn't it?
I'm not sure if can you put the pointers? I can see that.
The point.
Got it.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Yes, that is the boundary of the statistical area that we have meshed, that we have based population, the general electoral population. And that's also part of the mesh block boundary.
Right.
So what's the street that the green's on? I mean, where is that exactly? 'Cause it looks like it's the Bupa.
Patrick will look it up for you.
Go.
We can apply to cut mesh blocks in half and things like that, but generally in the modelling we follow the borders. We have to do special applications.
Yeah, but then Two Masses Oval was in Taradale.
They don't want to be in Taradale.
That's where they all come from.
If it's going to take a while, we can come back to you, Patrick.
No, I'm here now.
Huh?
Yeah, so that's. Let's see. Can you hear me now?
Google calls it Miani, Bupa Village.
Yeah.
I wasn't firm enough. Good thing I have my manager here. So that's the intersection between Ulayat Road and Hawke's Bay Expressway, so State Highway.
But it is Bupa.
It's Bupa, yeah.
It's okay. They've moved out of your area. They want to be in ours.
So Bupa and Taradale or the Ahuriri Blue?
So that's part of the Ahuriri.
Which is no man's land.
Then, yeah.
Question,
About that. We'll just continue talking what we're talking about, Max. So,
Well, we are kind of doing areas of interest, and from my knowledge of that village, since my mum's moving in, I do know a bit about it. I would think they would associate more with Taradale than but I don't know, are the Taradale councillors, do you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the other one that is normally made is that Miani is a community of interest that associates with Taradale.
I think Miani can go either way. having lived there myself for a number of years. It's just as quick to get into the CBD as it is to get to Taradale. So I think, yeah,
Tiawa
yeah,
association,
yeah.
that's the Miani and Miani Road, to down to Jervis.
Where is the cutoff? At Jervis Town, essentially, in this scenario.
Tannery Road.
Ah, yeah, Tannery Road, yeah.
You lift that little.
They call it the Miani pub, and that block there, you know.
That's where I lived. I know it well. Yeah, I lived at the pub.
I'm in the dog care.
Would that be, is that something that could be investigated? Because it's not a large number of people in that Miani area, and it might actually even it out even more.
One of our
Yeah.
Not a lot of
options. So are you, so you're thinking about Miani up to the point of the Tiawa developments? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, probably just to Willowbank Road.
Yeah.
Willowbank Road.
And so that the other, that's the southern side. So you've got Gavin Black, you've got Parsons, Maltby, and all of Miani Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Bupa, yeah.
And,
I mean, I could argue that one if you're going to go there, because, but
Well, you could argue Bupa.
it doesn't really matter.
Only cover
Yeah.
Burramai if you wanted to.
That's where
That's kind of where
bases.
the basis. I mean,
Yes.
considering, yes, I understand that they've relocated, I'm sure, a number of them from Taradale, but they're involved with Hiramai
Residents Association.
Residents
That's
Association
their
and things
home
like
base.
that. So it's,
They have a bridge.
yeah,
There's about four couples in there
yeah.
that belong to the Whitimer Residents Association that help out with projects in Whitimer.
And Bupa itself
Man, you
I
have,
want to
contributes
fund in Whitimer.
hugely.
you have your meetings there.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just that one time when I didn't tell you about it, Richard.
Okay, thank you. This is something we can talk further about in the breakout sessions too, and if we've got time, we'll see if we can do some modelling for you now as well, just to see if those stack up. Cool, okay.
Can I ask?
Oh,
a
sorry.
question?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Sam, yep.
Yeah. So what's been taken out of the Nelson Park ward to combine it with Onikawa in that model?
So it's, so McLean Park and Nelson Park.
In Tiawa.
And Tiawa wasn't in it, it was in Taradale.
Parts of Tiawa was.
Parts
Oh,
of
sorry,
Tiawa.
yeah, sorry, parts of Tiawa, yeah. But, yeah,
And the CBD, all that.
yeah.
And with your mesh blocks, where do the Māori electoral people on the electoral roll, where do they fit in with the mesh blocks? Because they're not going to be voting in these wards.
So so the calculation for Napier now that you've decided to have Māori wards is that we don't look at the total electoral population anymore. We look at the general electoral population. So the general electoral population is the total electoral population minus the Māori electoral population.
So that's what we've got here.
Yeah. So
They've
all
been
of
taken out.
Yeah. So all these figures are based on just the general electoral population.
Right.
Not the Māori electoral population. And that's why you see in our closest example to status quo that there's one less councillor in the Nelson Park ward. Yeah.
But then in some of them, yeah. What about the whatever you call it, socio-demographic characteristics? What role have they played in this composition?
Well, the Ahuriri ward, I guess, is predominantly yes, you could say that, yeah. So has the lower deprivation, middle to lower deprivation ratings. The Taradale ward is very low deprivation ratings, and the Nelson, well, the new Green Ward, whatever that's called, is a combination, obviously, of the previous Onikawa Tamatea and Nelson Park Ward, which are higher deprivation ratings.
So the more affluent, the lower deprivation areas have got a lot more say in this than the high deprivation areas. Whereas in some of the examples, is a bit closer to being equal.
sorry, Max, can you explain?
So this is option number 4, is it, we're looking at?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, well, what concerns me, if you have a look here, is that because the boundaries have changed, but the more affluent, the less deprived or braved or whatever, wards, Ahuriri and Taradale have got 6 councillors altogether in comparison with the higher level deprivation areas. They've got 3 between them. So it's a change of balance in terms of that factor anyway.
Although, so currently we've got 6 and 4 with this and Māori wards, because let's remember that there'll be a dedicated Māori ward councillor. Oh no, they'll both be citywide, won't they?
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's significantly different from the balance that it is at the moment.
This is also we
Because
have
if you
to
consider that the 4 you currently have in Nelson Park are also representing what you're defining as the more affluent parts of Nelson Park. So you're reducing the size of the area being represented. So that one councillor that's now going, used to be in Nelson Park, you could say was previously representing the more affluent parts of Nelson Park, if you get what I'm saying.
I think what you're saying, Maxine, is that
that
ward's losing representation and the other wards aren't. But that representation that you're losing in that particular ward is being replaced with representation on Māori wards.
Well,
because of the numbers.
And it's a smaller population size.
Well, it's not necessarily smaller, but because of the way it's calculated and it's based on non-Māori, I think that's how the calculation numbers are working out. So it's effectively, it feels as though they're losing representation and the other wards aren't, but the representation is effectively being replaced by Māori ward representation.
Yeah.
Well, contrary to that, but on option 3, Taradale's losing representation.
Yeah, that's right. You're losing one.
Yeah.
And ours
Nelson
being
Park's losing one, and Ahuriri's gaining one, but you're gaining more
area being diluted.
So it's all.
well, and
Isn't it
it's
more
more
to do with
people.
Those numbers that you put up with the
Yeah, that's right. So it's the population of the ward and that plus and minus 10%. We have to work within those.
Sorry. Well, we're going to lose one because of that anyway.
And then the one with Jervois Town.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and then if we're looking to pull in Miani in that, then that's going to even that out even more. Yeah.
Yeah, so
You've got 3, 3, and 3, and 8. There is.
if you see the population per councillor, the representation's fairly even. In terms of the numbers each elected member would be representing.
Did you?
It does put a lot of influence in those more affluent wards than there is at present. I mean, whatever you say about Nelson Park, including Napier South, etc., when you look at the overall figures, the Nelson Park ward is considerably higher levels of deprivation overall, matched, and is matched to some extent by the Onekawa Tamatea.
So under the current structure, though, you've got 6 across Nelson Park and Onekawa Tamatea, and 6 Ahuriri and Taradale. So, but
well,
also
I appreciate that you're going to lose one out of Nelson Park because of the Māori, the number that's on the Māori electoral roll. That's quite understandable.
Yeah.
All the more reason for a community board.
Well, that's all part of your considerations when you're looking through this.
And the Māori roll has significantly lower numbers per councillor, so they're getting greater representation, and they're predominantly in that ward. So
not completely.
Not completely.
They represent the whole city, more than.
Maybe we could flip the narrative and go, which ratepayers pay the most rates? Maybe they should be represented more. That's the exact opposite of the narrative. I think
we all pay
it's based on population. I think that's what we should be focusing on, is ensuring that we have a balanced population view.
Yeah.
It's never an easy.
Okay, thank you. So we'll keep going. Okay, so current ward boundaries. On the left, you'll see that's our exact current ward boundaries that we've got right now. That was based on SA2s. Then we received some more detailed feedback from stats. So we're just making a suggestion for a couple of little changes. So first of all, last time there was a request about moving King's Church or first of all checking where Pukimoki Moki Marae and King's Church were in the wards, and then moving both, if they weren't already, into the sort of Nelson Park ward or equivalent, like the Onikawa ward or thing. So we've checked with stats, that can be done. So up there is the 2 mesh blocks. So we're just suggesting that one of the mesh blocks is cut because there's a big lot of land under it. It's a very big mesh block, so it would be cut just sort of under the church, and then that would be included in, it can be included in any option because basically no one lives there, so it's not really material. So,
Can you explain that map? I can't figure out what's what there. Where's Riverbend Road?
Yep, Patrick, do you want to talk to this one? Just explain which mesh block has got the marae and things.
So the marae is currently there will be no change there. It's part of the Nelson Park ward. But the King's Church is actually part of Taradale at the moment, yeah. So south of the church is a big statistical area and also very big mesh block. And we have in this proposal split that mesh block into 2, where the King's Church has been split alongst the property boundary.
Sorry, I can't figure out where this is. Where's Riverbend Road?
That's Waianui Park at the top there, as well, on the top of the
At the
square.
top.
There's Pukimoki
going.
Moki.
That's
Boogie.
Riverbend Road.
Yep.
I need a pointer.
Okay.
Yep.
And the red thing's the park, is it?
No, that's Taradale.
That's Taradale, yeah. That's Taradale.
So previously, well, currently King George is in Taradale. So this is showing how they can
I
split it.
appreciate that. I can't relate to that map, but anyway.
So is the
All right.
line the cross-country drain?
Which line?
Oh, wouldn't we?
The light
The green line.
Okay.
The white line is actually the
No white
Street names would have been helpful.
the highlighted area. That's the property boundaries
thank you.
of the marae and the church.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Okay, we'll keep moving.
no.
King's House.
Next one. Yes,
That's
yes.
if we need
Yeah, cool.
That's if we need a pointer.
Okay, so this table just shows that if we left our current ward boundaries exactly as is, we would be out of the plus and minus 10%. So if you just see under the Onikawa Tamatea ward, it pushes it out to 12 there. So what we did is we just had a look at whether we could just tinker with it slightly, and if we go to the next slide. If we have a look at this area here, so that's currently the Onikawa West area is currently within the Ahuriri ward, but if we move that within the Onikawa Tamatea ward, excluding Humber Street apartments, then we can, it basically, it's a very slight difference we're talking about. It's about 250 residents that in that area, but we can keep Humber Street within Ahuriri ward, and the rest of it would go within the Onikawa Tamatea ward. So, sorry, I might have to go back to the other maps just to show you again. So you see it. Yeah, so you see how this one, the green, sorry, it's a bit hard to see on the screen. See how the green bit sort of goes up a bit higher on the second map?
I get it.
Yeah.
The request is because they were neglected.
Is that zoned for residential?
So,
That's the one that's not here.
So just to be clear, so Onikawa Tamatea need more people, so that's the way of getting
Yeah, that's right.
Happy to take part.
Thank you, Rhonda. Okay, so we'll just move on to the next one. We'll keep going.
We could go
sorry,
deeper into Taradale.
Yeah, so this just up here, it just shows you now we're within the plus or minus 10% for the current ward boundaries with the slight modification, so that fits in. Cool. Okay. So the next one is another one that we modelled, which was around looking at whether there was an option to include the new developments in Te Awa that didn't seem to resonate with the Taradale ward. Yeah, so we looked at this option here. Basically, 0% of the residents in the Miani Awatoto Te Awa area considered their community of interest to be Taradale ward back in the pre-consultation in December.
Can you say that again?
Oh, sorry. So in the pre-consultation that Virgil did in December, so there was a question asked about, where do you have a sense of belonging? Yeah. And so in that, 0% of people who lived in Miani, Awatoto and Te Awa said that they felt a sense of belonging with their ward, which is the Taradale ward. And there are...
That doesn't...
That's the Te Awa in the Miani.
So there's a couple of things to say to that too. So there are other examples where other suburbs have not affiliated with their ward either, but I just wanted to showcase that was an example. But also, of course, those people might say they're affiliated with their suburb, so it might be the Jervois town residents feel very connected to that, but I don't have that data because so this is a tricky thing that we've sort of uncovered through this process, is that because the statistical area unit covers Te Awa developments, Miani and Jervois town, it's that huge big land area, we probably don't get the richer data that we need, and so that's something I've talked to Stats about, is how would we go about even changing that, and what's the process? And apparently it's all linked with the census, next census, so they've got it on their books as something to look at and talk to us about next time.
Jane, did we ask those people which ward they thought they were associated
No,
with?
we didn't. Oh. No. That's a very good question too. And look, 74% of them said they felt a sense of belonging with the city of Napier. So that probably, answers the question. And 20% connected with their ward.
That's suburb.
Sorry, with their suburb. Thank you, Anna. So it's just understanding whether we feel that, the residents in Te Awa might, functionally, what they call the functional community of interest, where do they do their shopping, where do they go to school, are they actually likely to go all the way to Taradale to do those things, or are they more likely just to whip into the city, or, and it's just sort of understanding the demographics there too, obviously there's a couple of suburbs really close to them, like Marae Nui and Onekawa South, but those are not necessarily the similar demographics as the new developments in Te Awa. So it's just understanding if you're talking about the community of interest in Te Awa, develop the new area of Te Awa, where do they logically sit? So we modelled this option. However, next slide, doesn't quite pan out because it puts too many people in Ahuriri, and you can't then it's not enough to have 3. And it's too many to have 2. So it pushes it out to 16. So it is to say that the plus or minus 10% rule is not a total hard and fast rule. But what happens if you go with outside of those plus and minus 10%, you automatically, it has to go to the commission. We're automatically saying that our decision is going to go to the local government commission. So it's a sort of a bit of a policy call too for you all, that you might think, well, we don't want to go outside the plus or minus 10% because we want it to be fairer, and we don't feel there's enough rationale to have this, as you can see, 6,150 people population per councillor versus, say, in other wards, like Taradale Ward, 5,300. We don't think we don't think we can justify that, or you might feel like you can justify it. So that's the kind of discussion we want to have today, I guess. But I just wanted to give that as an example for you about Te Awa in particular, because that was something,
Just a question. Currently, the sorry, the Tiawa part of it is Nelson Park Ward.
Tiawa, the sort of
Under the current ward
Yeah,
boundaries.
then the current part of it, halfway, there's a cut-off.
Yeah, so the new development.
So how would the numbers stack up if that other bit of Tiawa was in the Nelson Park ward? Because they're at 15,000. I don't know, does that make it fit in the plus and minus 10%?
So if we just go back to the map of our current ward structure.
That's the question.
Oh, we could even go that one, I guess. So which area in particular are you talking about, sorry?
Just the new part of Tiawa.
Yeah. Oh, so in the one I just showed you, that new part of Tiawa was included in the blue part.
Ahuriri.
Yes. So sorry, if we go back to that one now.
Yeah.
So you'll see that we've actually included a stripped down Marine Parade as well. Now you don't have to do that, but it's you don't have to have the wards all touching each other, if that makes sense. But because it's coastal, we thought perhaps there was rationale for including the coastal strip down in the Ahuriri ward, because then all the residential coastal areas are in one ward. But either way, it doesn't still stack up, even if you don't include that little strip there. So is there any particular?
No, I guess currently that Tiawa bit is in the Nelson Park ward. So what I was saying is if you added the other bit of Tiawa into the Nelson Park ward, do the numbers stack up?
I'll come over and
yeah. 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 No. This is our current one.
This is our current ward structure.
Yeah. And this is the Tiawa bit that so what happened if we did that?
And that would be what? In Nelson Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so that's not all the developments though.
Yeah.
So Patrick might be able to explain this. So there's actually no one living.
Well, that's what I mean. Down this bit. I'm just looking at the numbers.
Oh, so you're thinking so moving Tiawa to Nelson Park. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Just putting it out there is a different. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that the new development you're talking about?
Yeah, so just to confirm, Rhonda was just asking about moving that blue bit behind Kirsten, so the bit that sort of juts down, and that's the new developments in Tiawa, so that's all the new residential developments and the retirement village, etc. So instead of having those in Taradale ward, she was just saying, is it possible that you could have that section moved to the Nelson Park ward? Instead of being in the Ahuriri ward. Yeah.
But then you need to, something we have to then justify to the Local Government Commission is that they are all one community of interest with, in terms of where they functionally go and do things, the demographics. And if you're thinking of new developments going into that ward, does that work?
Well, yeah, my question would be, do they link to Ahuriri more than they would link to Nelson Park?
That's why we modelled
that's why they did that one.
scenario, but it doesn't work with the plus and minus 10%. So then we'd have to justify keeping them. And if you think a lot of those developments were built since the last representation review, so that's why some of it's in there currently.
Is this based on the 2018 census, your mesh blocks?
Well, yes and no, because it's because obviously they haven't had the latest census results. So all the mesh block modelling, they do estimates based on the previous census. So they take that previous census data and then they do estimates building on that. So this is the 2023 June, I think it was, estimate.
Okay, so it's that recent.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I would think that the Tiawa, that, you've still, in this one, we still have Nelson Park, McLean Park, the CBD, all those areas, which, they're not low socioeconomic areas. you know, there's quite a distinct boundary in Georges Drive, pretty much. I don't know, that's just, yeah.
Yeah, these are all the things we're hoping that you will.
And I know it changes in the other options, but you're looking at our current boundaries, aren't you?
Yeah. So are you suggesting isn't one of the options to north, I guess, or east of Georges Drive to include that in Ahuriri Ward 2, and then it might push it up to 3 councillors in Ahuriri Ward?
Well, that could happen. Well, that's in the new options, that does happen.
But
in the current one, I'm just saying, you know, at the moment, I know it's a bit odd because the Te Awa cuts off in an unusual place with Nelson Park and Taradale.
Sorry, this is a weird question. I've just thought of it though with the point that Rodney was making. What about the whānau that are living in motels all along Marine Parade and stuff? What's their address? How do they get counted?
Sure. Well, yeah, good question. And that's, I guess, depends how the census data is, whether the census data includes those people.
It would have to.
Address on the night.
Hospitality hosts, we're responsible for accounting for their...
Right.
Can't hear you. Sorry, Nigel.
Hospitality hosts, we're responsible for accounting for anyone on their residence at the time of...
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sorry, from the socio-economic, yeah. It's just so complicated, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's tricky because, as Jane just said, the estimates are based on the 2018 pre-COVID numbers, and Stats NZ are only just starting to release the most recent data. So we can only work with what we have available, unfortunately. Yeah.
So, Rhonda, are you suggesting painting that little bit of blue down the bottom light green?
Yes. Pretty much. And do those numbers work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and these are some of the conversations that we can have in the breakout session. I'm probably just mindful of time, Kirsten. Is it all right if anyone doesn't no other questions for now? Maybe we could get into the Māori wards. Morahu and...
Yeah.
Hello. Supporting them.
Oh, this is just another heavy
Oh, yeah. Speaking.
That's right. Okay, so the Māori ward structure. So, as you know, we've done pre-engagement, the 2 sets of pre-engagement. We sent out a survey to the mana whenua organisations. We also had a community wānanga at Pukimoki Marae, and workshops and reports to Ngā Mā Nuka Nuka o Te Iwi. We had some good discussion at the community wānanga with people that attended. We've also got a workshop with Ngā Mā Nuka Nuka o Te Iwi on the 20th of June. So we're going to steal a bit of time off Morahu's team and just check in with them on where we're at with this, and if they have any recommendations they'd like to put forward to council for their final decision. So we'll bring that to you at the meeting. This latest round of pre-engagement, we didn't specifically consult on the options for the structure of the Māori wards, whether it be 1 or 2, as there'd been a signal and conversations around how 1 ward would perhaps work better with 2 people. It was more in line with how the general wards will be structured, but that's obviously still an open discussion. And Morahu's going to speak to you a little bit about the proposed name for if we go ahead with 1 Māori ward.
Tēnā tātou.
last week we had a meeting at Mana Ahuriri, so I'm still looking at Chad. Was it last week? We discussed the naming of the ward if it was to be at large. And the consensus was actually many of us had Te Whanga, which is coming from the naming of Te Whanga Nui Arotu. And because the harbour of its time before the earthquake covered basically the whole boundary of Napier City Council, of our boundaries. So it was actually quite appropriate. We have got Te Whanga and Te Whanga Nui there, but Te Whanga is actually appropriate, but Te Whanga will be regarded as the Great Harbour because it comes from the word Te Whanga Nui, which is the Great Harbour, but when we actually say it in our oratory, we actually say Te Whanga, but it's mainly without the Nui. But the Great Harbour, and Orotu is an ancestor of ours that was here pre-Kahungunu. He was actually here 15 generations before Kahungunu came here, so the name Te Whanga is actually quite relevant. It gives us, and it's actually about, Te Whanga also reflects to the saying of our people here, the mana whenua of Manaakitanga, as we were known to Manaaki visitors with food, making sure they were premished before they moved on to other areas, and it's the history that has got with it too. So.
Oh, and another thought behind Te Whanga is we didn't want a name that got butchered with pronunciation, so
yeah.
I thought Whanga was easy to pronounce.
We didn't want to put an ancestral name to it too, the Te Whanga Nui Orotu, because then it will be too long, and also it protects our tupuna name as well, ancestral name, because we don't just look after mana whenua, we look after tangata whenua and ngā hapori katoa. So by having Te Whanga, like Chad has said, and if he was to put it into phonetics, it would be quite easy too, so be easy said. Ka pai?
Great.
Any questions?
There is only one whanga, isn't there, in this area? So Te Whanga says this is it, basically.
That's right.
It's not as though there's more than one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Ka pai?
Bye.
Like
Good
it.
one. Easy.
Oh,
Easy.
thanks. Can you do all the others?
Sorry?
Not going to be like all the others.
Hospital pass.
Yeah.
We just wanted to touch briefly on the Māori Ward's proposed legislation. As you know, we've made a submission on behalf of Council. The bill's been introduced, had its first reading, submissions closed Wednesday evening, that's right. And our submission echoed a lot of the same concerns as submissions from LGNZ, Taituara and the Waitangi Tribunal. So the Department of Internal Affairs, I've popped some FAQs onto the hub for you from the Department of Internal Affairs into the representation review folder and into the Māori Wards folder. They've advised councils like Napier will have to hold a binding poll at 2025 local election unless council decides to rescind their decision. And at the poll, there will only be a change if the voters decide to remove Māori wards. And then, depending on the decision, that will affect the 2028 and 2031 election cycles. So yeah, nothing's changed so far with what was signalled was going to be in the bill. And there's a little flow chart there, which I think I've distributed to you already. Did anybody have any questions on any of that? No? Good. Okay. So, representation options. Thanks, Maruhi. Oh, right. So what has the pre-consultation feedback told us? Again, there's a variety of different opinions. There's a trade-off between the number of wards and having wards represent distinct needs. Smaller council size is preferred. We did put in our information pack that the number of councillors doesn't impact on the REM pool, however, smaller council size preferred. And options including at-large councillors had the least support, as you saw from Virgil's report.
And just on the cost factor, that was obviously clearly on top of a lot of people's minds. In the survey too, it even said before people could answer the questions, the cost will not change, however many councillors there are. So we did keep pushing that, right, even in the survey. Yeah.
It was interesting though, Anna, Virgil commented that a lot of people did comment that they liked the at-ward option because they thought that that provided good representation across the whole city. They liked that option, but they didn't opt for it because of the size of the council. So that was kind of a contradictory kind of commentary in terms of voting outcomes.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I suppose all of our options that had an at-large option were the larger size councils. So
and that's
something we should take into consideration.
Yeah, and that's predominantly, as we talked about in the last workshop, with the introduction of multi-wards. If there is to be 2 multi-ward councillors, then there has to be a particular number of general ward councillors. So there has to be 9 general ward councillors. So when you have 9 general ward councillors, there's 2 options. You can either have 1 multi-ward councillor or 2. And then obviously you have to stack on any at-large above that. So then you blow out the council size. It gets bigger and bigger. So yeah, that's the trade-off. Yeah.
So we should still keep in mind an option around potentially going out to consultation with an option with at-large councillors, and just think about how we could communicate well that having a larger council, a number of councillors on council wouldn't contribute to an increase in cost of governance. It is least to go around, but it was reflected in the commentary that we heard through the survey that was a...
Okay, so we thought we could go to a little breakout session now, similar to what we did last time in our last workshop, in groups of 2 or 3, to have a discussion around, out of the 5 options we have there, what your top 3 would be. Now you've had some more feedback on them, and your reasons for that. We've got some handouts to give to you to help with this, but thinking about those communities of interest, the size of the council, and any additional modelling that you might want us to look at. Bearing in mind with the modelling, so because we have to take it to New Zealand Stats to get those estimates in the mesh blocks of general electoral population and Māori electoral population, and the last lot of modelling took sort of 1.5-ish weeks to get back. So we're trying to work within the time frames. But if there is stuff that you would like done, better to tell us now, and we can get that underway. So council size, a lot of the feedback from the second round was for a smaller council size. This despite the December survey where 52% said they were happy with the same size and 24 wanted smaller, 11 larger and 13 unsure. So yeah, there's a bit of a difference between some of the feedback that we've received. Be great if you could have a think about ward names. I'll hand out, I sent you an email a week or so ago, and I know you had a lot of other stuff on your mind, so big apologies. And thank you for the feedback we did receive. But just to have a think about some options for ward names, because we'll have to bring all of those in the decision on the 27th of June. We have to have all the elements ticked off in that resolution. And also, if there's things for an improvement program, so for example, Councillor Bowe, what you're talking about with representation in those lower socioeconomic areas, is there other things that we could be doing better as a council that would compensate for maybe that difference in representation. Okay, so it's quite a lot to think about, but we'll give you some sheets to help prompt you. So if you want to get into some groups.
You've got 4 groups of 3, split each of these in half. That's a special requirement.
I want to go with Sally. There's no conflicts.
Come over here, Terranol.
Come over here, Terranol.
Terranol.
Should we mix the wards up? I got dressed this morning and I was like, I wonder if
Yeah, we'll print enough.
Yeah, I'm mixing in with Aharuri.
Yeah.
Another affluent
The more
society.
affluent. Come join us.
Tell that to Terranol.
Hello.
Tell that to some streets of
3 wards,
Terranol.
how many wards? No,
I feel a little bit
depends which
outranked,
one
yeah.
goes out, doesn't it?
Turtle fish. I'll sit over here.
I'd happily go up to 2.
How was it?
I'm super required. I'm super required. Catching up on email.
I don't want to have.
Oh, cover.
That's all right. I'll sit over here.
I feel like, do you feel as though you're a community of interest? What's the name of your community of interest?
That's all right.
What even board face?
Thank you.
We like to.
No. I can handle it. Can't leave these turtle people by themselves.
Okay, so we want your top 3 options, if you can narrow it down to top 3 options, and if you can think about ward names too, please.
So these are the top 3 as came out of
Top 3 options. One,
Yeah.
Very keen. I've had lots of coffee this morning. So we've done ours in reverse order because as you're presenting and you want to say who came first. So in third place is 1, second place is 2, and first place is 4. Now what we went was obviously 1 is closest to status quo. So we've gone with status quo and the Te Whanga Ward. Now what we did with number 2 is we've got, you'll see with your picture, we've got this sort of, the Nelson Onikawa Ward comes from the coast and Te Tai is from the coast. And as Morohu said, that when the names were done for the place names, or you'd look from Mataruahau to then find those place names, so it makes sense from the coast. And the rest would be Ahuriri Ward, and then Te Whanga Ward, which is Māori Ward. And for our number 1, which is 4, we've got Te Whenua, because basically that land of Onikawa, Nelson Park and stuff was gifted to us after the earthquake. So that sort of rose up, so Te Whenua. And we sort of looked at the Ahuriri Ward and thought maybe it's more Mataruahau as opposed to Ahuriri, because from Mataruahau you can see all 4 corners of Napier. And for Taurau, either Taurau or Tatara. And of course, Te Whanga as well is a Māori Ward.
That's great.
Thank you for the Mana Whenua and cultural advisors over here.
Do you want to ask them about council size or anything else at Jervis Town? Are they happy with Jervis Town?
So just double checking with you guys. So the options you've selected, so that's going with the number of council that we proposed. And what was the other thing? Oh, the treatment of Jervois Town. And oh, okay.
And you guys did a great job there.
Thank you.
Great job of that.
I think, we did put this town off and we'll get this town around.
Yeah, that's fine.
We've done a little different, but no surprises, I'm sure. We actually started with a bit of a principle though, and we wanted to say this, that we should avoid having to go to the local government commission and stay within the rules. So the numbers that shows us going outside that plus minus 10%. We're in favour of not doing that. Let's just stay within, because actually it means that it's fair and equitable. So for us, if we needed to evidence things, I think that's quite a strong argument. We think that the communities of interest have been well evidenced through our process so far, so that's a tick from us. Council size and options, we took into consideration the pre-engagement stuff as well as some of the comments given to us by our officers. We went with number 4, so that's the acknowledgement of the preference from the pre-engagement. We went with number 1 from the premise of don't change the goalposts, it's the closest to status quo. And we thought, why not throw in an at-large option, because everyone gets to vote in 2 wards, so it gives you more choice. Ward names, we're not as flash as those guys over there, but we did say consideration of Māori names for all the wards. We'd like to endorse Te Whanga, we think that that's really appropriate. And our other suggestion maybe was that we look at something directional, which actually fits in with the Māori stuff too. So, that's
it. Who's next?
Up next, follow the boys and girls.
You expect what?
Let's go, GK.
We agree. We think you've done an outstanding job.
Someone's got to hold up the GK.
Yeah, you got to hold it up.
We'll have the green girl hold up the green. So, yeah, we went with option 4 as our first option, with some tinkering around the Bupa into the Green Ward and Miani back in Taradale. Similar size to the current council, 1 less. We came up with some we were going to go Ward 1, Ward 2 and Ward 3, but we came up with Ward Central and Taradale.
Yeah.
But we absolutely concur with Māori names. Option one is our second And then we decided we'd go right outside the boundary, and we came up with a whole new one, which had 1 Maori ward, 2 in Ahuriri, 2 in Taradale, 2 in Nelson Park Onikawa, 2 at large, which reduced our council to 9 councillors and a mayor of 10. So that was just a...
Does that work with the formulas?
Don't know.
Oh.
Seeing some very surprised looks on Anna's face with that suggestion.
The other little bit around consider how ward representation could be improved. One of the conversations at the drop-in centre was about empowering Te Tangata Maraenui instead of creating a new entity, just support them with maybe a councillor person on the board. And we thought neighbourhood support groups would be really helpful for us as representatives.
Right, last but not least, everybody except me thought number 4 was the best. So everybody except me agrees with you all. And the advantages, of course, of number 4 is simple layout, fewer councillors. Can you please add your voice to it? That's our request. My concern is that it reduces the influence of the low socio-economic quite considerably. The names we came up with were Taradale, Coastal Ward and Central Ward. And what is this?
Oh, you already said it.
Oh,
Said
okay.
Miani.
Right, got it. Okay, so that's number 2. We like that because it was small again. It combines socio-demographic areas, so it's fairer, thank you. Central Ward and Taradale Ahuriri. And if someone can come up with appropriate Māori names, I think we'd be happy with that. And number 1, the current boundaries make it easier to understand, so most people have got an idea of what their ward is, not everybody, but we would like with all of the Te Awa Street, Te Awa Road, in Nelson Park. Yeah. So that's us. Could I just make a comment can I respond to your suggestion about empowering Te Tangata? I think the community board would include not just Māori. Te Tangata is a very small, all volunteers. It changes from year to year. It hasn't got the same credibility or consistency or sustainability of a designated community board. So that's just my little response to that. But that's our lot. Thank you.
Go, well done.
Should we get staff to judge? Take snippets out of board actually. Considering what we've done pretty well. Considering the last 3 days.
That's great. Thank you so much for all of that feedback. We'll take all of that into account for our report back to you on the 27th.
Do we want to confirm around the maps and the modelling around Jervois Town and Miani? Do we want to confirm with the group now, or do you want to do that and come back on by email in between? Or we'll just come back with the next report to council on that? Is there any comments that you want to make around the maps and the modelling now?
Yes. So we've just done some rudimentary modelling, but it seems to stack up fine for the 3 ward option, if you want to include Miani as part of Taradale Ward, that's fine, and then it makes the figures even closer together. Yep. And then the other one, which was could we move Te Awa, the new developments in Te Awa, as part of Nelson Park Ward? That looks like, but again, with the disclaimer that I have to get its stats modelling, but it looks like that would stack up within the plus or minus 10% in our current ward boundaries. Yeah.
It would suit Te Tai really well too.
And the Bupa one, that's a mesh block in itself, so that shouldn't be a problem either. We can include that within the Taradale Ward.
If they get Miani, we get Bupa.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Easy.
Either way.
They have with the checkbook.
Yep.
Yeah.
30K to spend in what ward?
City.
What ward?
Actually, the cross-country drains in Taradale.
So just checking, there's a general sense of comfort around those changes to the maps and modelling. We'd direct the team to make those changes to the maps and the modelling.
Just for clarity, what's the suggestion for Bupa?
So it sounds like there's 2 suggestions for Bupa at the moment. So,
Both of them. Look at
so we currently it already. So in our current modelling, it's in Ahuriri ward. Is that correct? And then there's one suggestion to move it within Taradale ward, and another suggestion to move it within the Green Onikawa ward.
Oh, hang on, we can change that because Chad could make a suggestion, I'll make a suggestion, Ron, so there'll be 4 suggestions to move it into Taradale ward.
Wow.
I suppose then,
Well, we got 4 too.
I suppose
If only we had an at-large to decide that.
then it comes down to thinking about communities of interest.
Yeah, I think
that's
that's
right.
probably,
Exactly.
it should be a principle-based decision around
So
what.
shouldn't it be Nelson Park then, based on that?
Yeah.
That's where they're spending their money. That's where they're supporting.
They drive down the road.
So that's Ahuriri.
Yeah.
And the new.
And the new, yeah, but, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they are spending their money there.
Well,
Because I know a lot of them there that go to Taradale and spend their money. So I think it'd be interesting to talk to them. Yeah.
Not the people. Bupa as a business. They're investing in that part of.
I was talking about the
I think we're
community
going to need to put
interests
together the
don't
2
include
options. We'll put it to you as a decision, and you can make a decision on it, a formal decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you make your decision at council, you can make a decision on that too.
It doesn't explicitly say in our guidelines, but they talk about with communities of interest, it's more about residents than businesses. So,
Well, they're not part of Taradale Residents Association.
No, they are not. No, they are not.
The
Apparel. Pitavai.
well, there you go. There you go.
We'll work through that together offline. I think we just probably need to push on.
Okay.
At least we've had a fight about something.
Go and ask
Where does the Purumai Residents Association meet?
Oh, at Bupa.
Oh, the Taradale Residents?
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Community board in Maraenuri.
Community
Taradale
board.
Library.
Community board and right.
Okay, so the highlights, obviously Virgil's given you some highlights from the pre-consultation feedback about how the community felt about a community board. So I've just kind of taken these figures from the most strongly agreed and strongly disagreed, whereas Virgil's we sort of slightly agree and strongly agree. So 33% of respondents strongly disagreed with a community board and 26% strongly agreed. 64% of Maraenui respondents and 53% of Nelson Park ward were in favour. 56% of Māori respondents were in favour, that's Māori respondents from across the city, and younger respondents were more likely to be in support. So, some interesting stats. So, in thinking about whether we want to put forward the idea of establishing a community board, the arguments through the pre-consultation feedback were the need for Maraenui to have greater representation and a stronger voice in civic matters or more support generally. This is largely driven by the belief that this community has unique needs given its socio-economic context with recognition of social inequality. The top arguments against in the consultation was the cost. No single area should receive special representation, and that there's already adequate representation through the ward councillors and the soon-to-be established Māori ward councillors. And that was 46 of respondents said that. So we did get some feedback from Ropo Iwi Trust. This was from 28 people, so they did a little survey in-house and sent us their replies, which was really cool. There was consensus there against establishing a community board. An alternative was to have a community board for each area in Napier to hold elected members to account. They also said, and attendees of our Marae Nui drop-in session said, that if you have a board, it should encompass ngā whānau o Marae Nui, so people who once resided in Marae Nui but who are now in Mariwa, Onikawa, Piramai and Te Awa. Also, they talked about the Marae Nui club rooms, Pukimoki Marae and Marae Nui Golf Club, which are all outside of that suburbs borders. Something to keep in mind, but also something to think of is the larger the population the board represents, the more it will cost to run. We're not talking huge figures, but it does influence things. The Remuneration Authority have a formula they use, and it's based on how many people a board represents plus some other elements. And we're just going to check in with Tiffany. Sorry, Tiffany, I should have given you a warning. About how the relationship between council and the area is at the moment and what's already happening. Just briefly.
Yes, I mean, basically one of our priorities in the community development grants is for basically Marae Nui, so that kind of helps to fund any ongoing projects there. I think that there is a strong relationship between councillors and Tūtangata Marae Nui and staff in Tūtangata who meet with infrastructure and things like that. I think there's definitely work that could be done there, and we would definitely welcome any direction from council to encourage the things that were pointed out in that early pre-engagement around low voter turnout and low ward awareness and that kind of thing. And I think our team would enjoy to take on that challenge. As far as projects that are ongoing, once the kind of splash pad and the pod and the basketball court and things have kind of been completed, our interaction there has really gone kind of a lot less in the last kind of year or so. So that's kind of the state of affairs.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, and we push back to be here in the long-term plan as well, which probably I expect the community probably isn't very happy about. But
Okay, so taking that feedback into account, so if the answer was that you were interested in establishing a community board, the question is, would it be for Marae Nui, that kind of hard boundary, or Marae Nui and surrounds? So through our pre-engagement, respondents agreeing with a board, you'll see there 47% agreed in Mariwa, 42 agreed in Piramai, 38 in Onikawa, and 64% in Marae Nui of the respondents from those areas. The Marae Nui estimated population as of June 2023 is 3,950. If you were looking at Marae Nui and surrounds, I did a quick calculation, it would be about 21,000 people. So, and whether that was using the suburb population, so it's how you, if you were going to go with the Marae Nui whānau, how that would work out, I'm not sure how we'd manage the boundaries for that, but happy to take ideas. So we would put, in terms of a model or a cost, it could be anywhere from 30,000 over 3 years for 4 board members, 45,000 over 3 years for 4 board members, one of whom would be the chair, plus council officer time and council resource for meetings. It could be subject to an interim review after 18 months and then a full review after 3 years to inform the 2031 rep review, to have another look at it. You can only disestablish a board as part of a representation review. Now, somebody asked me this question and I said it around the other way, so apologies for that. So if council wants to establish, you can establish boards outside of a representation review proposal if the particular area asks for one. You disestablish as part of a representation review.
Thank you, Hannah. That's new information, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, if just theoretically going through a scenario, if we decided not to go out with the community board option, that wouldn't preclude the community coming to us. How would they do that? Is there a established process, or is it just an easy, we would like a community board for these reasons, and then we have to consider it? What does it look like?
We'll look. 1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute caller. We'll look that up so that we give you the right information. I don't think there's a legislated process, but I might be wrong on that. So the minimum set by the REM authority for board members is $2,000 per annum before tax. Chair gets double what the members get. But again, the REM authority will do their calculations and let us know what we would need to give our board if we established one. And they do that after the Local Government Commission issues its final decision on the rep review. And then, of course, council can delegate functions to the board, and if the functions delegated lessen elected member responsibility, which you can do, then council can allocate remuneration from the council remuneration pool to the board members, because the board members are effectively doing some of the work that the elected members would have otherwise been doing. I hope it's all very convoluted. I hope that makes sense.
So I think the REM authority sets a minimum, but I think you'd want to sort of remunerate your members appropriately, and you might want to do some kind of, something comparative to what your subcommittee members or Ngā Manokanaka members are getting paid for meeting attendance or something. You might want to compare. You might not want to pay the minimum to what your community board members are being paid.
Yeah, the REM authority decides, but we can give extra on top of that.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So that's the minimum, but
Yes.
likely that would probably cost a little more. I'm not sure that you'd want to pay the minimum. And then I think you'd probably want the board to have some kind of operating budget to work with in terms of being able to implement programs or be able to pay, have grant funding available to, for seed funding for projects and things like that. So.
Yeah, so the national average for board membership is 4 to 6. You can have as little as 4, you can have as many as 12. At least 4 people are elected and others can be appointed, including councillors.
Something about that from the information you sent me. You can include at least 4 elected members and may include appointed members. The number of appointed members is to be less than half the total number of members. So if you had a board of 4, you could only have 1 appointed member on top of that. Less than half the total number of members.
So, yes, I think that's correct.
Well, that's what you sent me.
Yeah.
So from what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, once you establish one of these things, if it's not demonstrating any benefit, then it's bloody hard to disestablish it.
Well, you could look at disestablishing through the next representation review. Yeah.
So my question is, what is the problem we're trying to solve, and is that process the most efficient and effective way of solving that problem, or is there another way of looking at it and saying what are the issues that are being raised by the community that they believe there isn't a current process that considers those issues? And then we need to look at our current processes and say, well, how do we overcome that? And is there a better way, rather than creating another layer of bureaucracy that may simply slow things down?
Yeah, so we've got on our final slide some suggestions we've come up with for other mechanisms to address representation generally, but they could apply to that particular area. So yes, definitely that's something to take into consideration.
And the reason I say that is, while it may be a squeaky wheel that's making a noise in one area, it could actually be unrecognised issues that exist in the rest of our wards that we're not aware of, and the same process could be used to resolve more broader areas rather than, having a separate way or a separate system.
Juliet.
Yeah, question about remuneration. Would it be a sort of payment despite whether people turn up to the meetings? I'm just thinking, like, can it be done on a meeting by meeting basis, or is it just like across the?
REM Authority did looked at all of this. I think it was 2019. They set a minimum of 2,000 per annum. So in terms of people not turning up to the meetings, I'm not sure quite. We'd have to look into that further for you, I think.
I think we would just develop a policy, our own internal policy for remunerating.
Or if community boards, if the standing orders apply, then if you get 3 absences without apology, you can be taken off. But we'd have to look into that to make sure that that was the case. So we've discussed this with you before, but just as a reminder, what a board could do, or what other boards around the country do. They bring issues to the council that affect their area. If there's an issue coming to council, it can go to the board first for them to consider and speak to the area so that they can then feed back solutions to council. Boards can make submissions, provide feedback, lobby councillors and council committees, carry out research and surveys, link with their community, its residents associations, organisations and special interest groups, apply for council funding to support community development, or you might give the board their own budget to distribute. And council can give delegation for some decisions about the area it represents, like naming parks, or, it can be as little or as large as. You right? Yep. Okay. So we're going to have a breakout session, another one, for a short amount of time to discuss arguments for and against.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just considering time, and I'm not sure. I think we're a little bit over time. So, and just want to get a sense of, maybe we might just want to get feedback from the group around community boards. What do you think, Kirsten? Just do that as a group, and just get maybe a general sense of direction.
Could I speak about that? Is that what we're going to do? Yep. Right. Well, as somebody who has been involved in, I guess, local determinations concerning these representation reviews right from the start. One of the reasons why we moved in 2006, before Keith and I came on council, from everybody being elected at large to the part board system, was because 2 groups came to council and asked for representation through a part board system. One of them was the Taradale Development Association, who had no representation on council at the time. I think everybody lived on the hill, or just about, and the Maraenui Community Council Trust. And as a result of the council at the time said, no, we're all one community of interest, we're all in a small area, blah, blah, blah. There was an appeal to the Electoral Commission. They came back after consulting or hearing with those 2 groups in particular, and they said those are 2 community of interests that need to be represented on council. We want to go ahead with the part board system as had been proposed, but they also suggested Maraenui in particular is such a special area for the reasons that are given, that a community board might also be of a good way of making sure that they would be represented. And I think another determination in 2019 suggested also, I think Maraenui and Bayview, perhaps that council might consider those two areas because of their special, that they were community of interests that were not necessarily going to be well served by the particular setup. So I just see with Maraenui, with all the stats and figures, also to mention of the community board, everybody in that area would be voting for a community board. It's not just those on the Māori roll. So it would be representing the whole geographical, physical area. And something else I'd like to take into consideration, and with Maraenui in particular, there's over 200 new homes being built there as we speak. So it's going to change the population, the demographics, and it will certainly be an area of considerable interest, even more so to council. So I just wanted to give you that little bit of historical, how come, Maraenui gets special consideration, and that this has been suggested by the Electoral Commission, a community board was something that we would look at. It hasn't just come out of nowhere. It's been from the Electoral Commission originally.
Can I just ask a few questions around that? Is the deprivation levels in Buramai, Onikawa South and Mariwa similar to Maraenui?
Yes, from what I remember, Maraenui is the highest that you can possibly get.
Yeah.
And then a close second was Onikawa South and I think Mariwa
So Onikawa
East or Piramai East.
Yeah.
One of those two. Yeah.
Onikawa South had the same deprivation index rating.
Have they recommended a community board for those suburbs?
You could extend it to Maraenui and surrounds was one of
Yes.
the...
Yeah, that's...
Now, I'm also of the understanding Tamatea North has as higher deprivation as Maraenui. Have they recommended a community board for Tamatea North?
I think the context of what they were and their determination that they made last time was that council could consider a community board in Maraenui or areas that have barriers to engagement, such as high deprivation can be a barrier to engagement with council. And so that was sort of listed in their determination. So that's why we've looked at Maraenui and surrounds, because like you say, there are some other areas which also are close by and have similar stats. However, Maraenui has the highest of the stats. Yeah.
The statement you made, was it barrier to representation?
Barrier to engagement.
Barrier to engagement.
Barriers to engagement, yeah.
So that's what we would effectively be looking at.
Yes, well, a community board is set up as another, avenue for people to use.
Such as that.
Yeah. So when I spoke to a couple of other councils about their community boards, one thing that came through was that some of them have historically kind of had the community boards in place since the 1989 reorganisation. And they've continued for a long time. And sometimes it can be hard to understand why they're there, because the community is not so different from the other communities in that area. And when a council has experienced quite a different community, then there could be benefit in that. That's some of the feedback I had from a couple of the other officials. So it's sort of, you could establish community boards across the whole city, or you could establish them just for a particular community that might have different needs and things. So,
I'd be keen to hear from the other Nelson Park board councillors. Sorry to put you on the spot, but you're the ones that know your community the best, alongside Maxine. So, yeah.
I've got two trains of thought, and they're at opposite ends of the spectrum. So I don't disagree with what Maxine's saying, especially from that historical context, etc. I absolutely acknowledge that, and I do see the conundrum is how do we create better engagement? How do we create better voter turnout? How do we create better education? That is an issue, particularly in our ward. I acknowledge that hugely. Does a community board, is that the answer to it? It feels like we're looking for a silver bullet, where when I look at these improvement ideas, it's a whole heap of stuff that you need. The more that you devolve to a community board as well, in my mind, the less fair and equitable it becomes to the other citizens in the city. So that concerns me. And part of my devil's advocate thinking is, let them have it. Let them see what they do with their 4 members. How are they going to pick 4 people to sit on that community board? When you consider the level of understanding out there, and you know, you read the comments and you have the conversations with people, what they think of as a community board, it's a little bit scary to hear the levels of understanding as well. And so there would need to be a huge amount of education probably at the front end before it would most likely achieve what we want it to achieve. I see that there's a need for something, but I don't think that this is the something that we're looking for. So, but they do want something, and they're very vocal about something. They want it. And when you think about the democratical well-being of our city in the long run, what are the somethings that we're giving? You know, so that's. Sorry, it's a bit confusing.
No, it's not.
Well, summarise, Sally.
We have option. We have option 3.
All right. Look,
3 out of.
I'm a continual standing apology for Te Tangata Marae Nui, but I do try and get in there as much as I can. And I can't sit here and say that I speak for anyone in Marae Nui, but certainly when it comes to the rest of the ward, which I think I represent quite fairly, I'd say they'd just say it's another layer of bureaucracy we don't need.
Yeah, so Te Tangata is amazing. It's an amazing group. They do great work, and there's lots of amazing groups in Maraenui already doing amazing things. Now, the thing we need is to actually join those groups up so they actually talk to each other, because they've probably got more community engagement in Maraenui than other places, but we just need to get them talking to each other. So I personally think that it's an extra cost, an extra layer of bureaucracy. I don't think it will achieve what we want it to. That's just my personal view.
Can I add one last thing? Sorry. I've been looking at Flaxmere and the way that I think that Flaxmere has become far more engaged as a community over the years. And one of the things, like when I'm looking at the improvement ideas, I'm like, yes, these are all correct. These are all, great ideas and things that I think would probably help and shift the dial on some things. But one of the other things that they have is that they have community ambassadors. They have people from that community, because I don't live in Maraenui. I've been connected to it for a decade. I don't live in Piramai. I've been connected to it, The clearest message that I hear from Maraenui is, don't tell us what we want. Don't come in here. This is their patch. So how do we identify the ambassadors within that community to do this mahi, to increase engagement and so that they have a clearer voice and a stronger voice? And I don't think councillors are the answer to that. It's got to be the people.
Just the improvement ideas Sally's talking about, no, that's fine. It was just on our last slide. So some brainstorming ideas that possibly may achieve some of the same things that are being discussed, but not just for Maraenui, but across the city.
Do I write a reply?
Of course you do, Max.
Feels like.
If we go ahead with option 4, Nelson Park and Onikawa Tamatea wards, as they now are, will have 3 councillors between them. So obviously there's going to be a reduction of council representation in that area. I've been sort of the, undesignated
councillor for Maraenui. I'm not going to be there forever. I may not stand next year, whatever. It's been a very ad hoc kind of arrangement. We've never had, in my experience, a councillor actually from Maraenui, this very special area. And while Tū Tangata Maraenui is a great little group, it's very fragile. It's very based on volunteer time from overextended people. It may not be there in 2 years' time or 3 years' time. It certainly isn't anything like an advisory board, which was what I would imagine a community board would be. The finances, it's not going to cost a lot of money. The powers would be very limited. It might hopefully raise the actual voter turnout in that area, which is extremely low in an area that badly needs representation because of the high needs of that community and the increasing high needs of it. I just think, I understand that it's going to be difficult deciding, what is the further extent of this possible community board if it's decided to go ahead with one. That's tricky. But it is an area, a very strong community of interest. It's the most connected suburb in the city, I would imagine, going to be facing some huge challenges with another 200 homes being built there. And I think this would be a small thing for council to do, to just say, hey, we're listening to Maraenui. We appreciate that this is a special community of interest, high needs, and we want an advisory board. There's no guarantee. We've only got 3 councillors representing 2 wards now, option 4. I don't think that will be a very soft voice for Maraenui. So that's my...
Gregor and then Chad.
Yeah, I think, Maxine, you missed out there. I mean, Maraenui were a huge advocate for Māori wards as yourself. And you're saying there's down to 3. You cannot exclude the Māori ward in there. Now, you mentioned that they've never had a person or councillor from Maraenui. Here's a good opportunity to rally up the troops and get good candidates from Maraenui in there running in the Māori wards.
Chad.
Further to that, yes, so if we
You just want to pop your speaker down? Thank you.
Further to Gregor's kōrero, yes, so they have the 2 Māori wards, and then they also got representative on the Ngā Mānukunuku, the iwi. They got Rōpua iwi and Tū Tangata. But not only that, each marae appoints a member to Ngā Mānukunuku, the iwi, and each marae have connections to Maraenui, and so there's pathways there. And I think maybe one of the issues is the intensification of all the social housing and getting thrown all in the one area without those wraparound services. And so I think they got pretty good representation there. And I spent the first 21 years of my life there. Henua Takaha, they grew up there. Some good leaders have come out of Maraenui, and I just think it's got good representation if we get a option 4. Yeah.
Thank you, Chad. Anyone else got anything they'd like to share? Rhonda?
Just following on from Chad and talking about, the intensification, and a lot of the issues that Maraenui has aren't necessary council issues. So the representation is not necessarily a council-based thing. It's an across-the-board government agencies as well, is how I see it. So, because a lot of the problems we can't fix. So, Nigel.
Yeah, there are 2 questions on my mind. One is, what's the Commission's view on the fact that people don't have to live in the ward they're representing. You know, do the Commission actually have a view on, because if this is a question about representation and about people feeling or a community feeling they're not being representative, the other question I had, so the two are blending together, is none of our options were actually smaller wards with more dedicated representation. You know, our wards have gone bigger with a broader representation. So if representation is the genuine issue, then our option analysis is actually headed away from that by the 5 options that we've put forward. But I'm really serious about the question of where is the Commission's view on people being represented by people of their community at the council table. You know, but at the moment the law allows for people to be nominated that don't live in a community. You know, and so if this is about representation and getting truly, you know, nub of the issue representation, communities being represented by someone from their community, we've actually missed the boat in our options. And have the Commission actually overlooked that requirement around where people get nominated from and who they're representing?
I think the issue is engagement as opposed to representation.
Yeah, that's yeah. And that's why I asked that question earlier. What is the problem we're trying to solve?
Yes. Yeah.
One of the reasons we moved away, we didn't go with smaller wards, is due to previous feedback from elected members about how difficult it can be to be a single ward councillor working on your own, but appreciate what you're saying.
So the decision today is around whether we consult on a community board.
What?
And I think
direction.
I'm hearing more nays than yays.
So you don't need to make a decision today. We were just kind of teasing out the direction from you.
The decision will be at the committee.
So we can put up 2 options to either consult on the establishment of community board or not in the paper, and you can make that decision at your council meeting.
I think it does need to be at the council meeting.
And we can outline all of the rationale for establishment and not. And the cost and how we would support that internally, because I think having the ability for, I think just the cost, the remuneration of the board is one thing, but we need to make sure that we've got the capacity internally and staff capability to support a community board for it to be successful, because we could establish it, but if we can't support it internally, then it won't be successful either.
No. And we just cut them.
Can we also have in the paper what the alternative solutions to the problem might be?
Yeah, so we can outline some of these improvement ideas and some other options that we have, and particularly around some of the work that the engagement team are already doing in that space, and some of the alternative options that we could potentially direct some funding towards the engagement team around some of these improvement ideas too.
Sounds good. Thank you, team. And we're all a bit tired.
Just a comment, 42 years living in Flaxmere, Flaxmere has 2 councillors, 2 people on the council. They have a few community-minded people, and if people have concerns in Flaxmere, they'll contact one of those community people. That person will round up a few other people, and then they have this big hui, and then they call in the council, they give their issues to that councillor, and he goes off. They go off to present it to the council. You can have that same sort of thing in Raianui or anywhere. It's just the council's being available, and I would think that in Raianui there are several leaders in the community that have access, or people have access to them, that they can share their issues in a more informal meeting and then present it to the councillor, who takes it to the council meeting. And that's about engagement, isn't it?
Kind of
Thank you, that's really useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okie dokie.
All right, so thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate You've had a very council-heavy week. If anybody is interested, there is actually lunch which we couldn't cancel in case you had deliberations this afternoon. So that's in the boardroom if you'd like to take something with you. So just next steps.
Yes.
Just
So we'll look at the additional modelling and get that modelled through stats. We'll just send you an interim email, I think. And then obviously we'll have the paper ready for the 27th. Yep. Yeah.
Great.
And if you have any further questions, just let us know.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, team.
And we opened with karakia, so we should close.
Kia tau, ngā marie, kia ora, ngā iwi, taro, whakaahiri, kia piki ora, te kaha, me te māramatanga, i ngā wā, atoa, tihei, mauri ora.